Hey, everybody, and welcome to NCGOP Studios. My name is Michael Watley, and I am the chair of your North Carolina Republican Party. And welcome to tonight's Chairman's Chat featuring Dale Folwell. Thanks for coming into the studio.
Well, thanks for having me, and it's great to be with the audience here.
Absolutely. So, how are you doing? Everything going well in your world?
Well, as keeper of the public purse, as you can imagine, we're very busy. At the Treasurer's Office, we manage the 26th largest pool of public money in the entire world. And when you add it all up with the health care and the retirement and the prescription drug and the financial operation division, the amount of money we manage is 8 times larger than the state budget.
I tell you, when folks look at the job description for treasurer, this is not a very simple kind of position. You serve on a number of boards. You've got oversight over not just the public purse, but a lot of other aspects of the state government. Tell folks who are not familiar with the treasurer position what all you get to do on a daily basis.
Well, as the former treasurer Harlan Bowles said in his book, The Keeper of the Public Purse, the state treasurer of North Carolina has more constitutional and statutory responsibilities and duties than almost any other elected official in the state, including the governor. And I asked one of his descendants one time, and he said except for the governor, because obviously the governor has command of the National Guard. And so ultimately, Michael, we're in the check delivery business, and we deliver checks to retirees, those that teach, those that protect, and those that otherwise serve. And as I've always said to the staff at the Treasurer's Office, no one calls us to book a cruise. They call us because they've had a life-changing event. They've gotten a job with the state or the local government. They've retired, they've gotten married, they've gotten divorced, they've lost a spouse, they've had children have aged out. So people call the Treasurer's Office because they've had a life-changing event as it relates to their retirement or their health care, and some are blessed and some aren't.
Yeah, I think when we look at where North Carolina is right now, clearly with the virus and with the economic lockdown, there's been a lot of challenges for the state in terms of the budget, in terms of where we are. But at the same time, North Carolina is in a lot better shape than other states because we did have a rainy day fund. We did have a very good positioning in terms of where the state funds have been invested. Talk a little bit about where we are as a state financially right now.
Well, I believe as the state treasurer that we're in the strongest possible financial position, especially as it relates to states our size. I think that we have the potential of pulling out of this economic virus and flattening that curve. Your viewers have heard a lot about flattening the healthcare curve, and obviously I know a little bit about that from personal experience with COVID-19, but flattening the economic curve, because when people are locked down, they can't move, and when they can't move, they can't consume, and when they can't consume, they're not generating gas tax, occupancy tax, sales tax, and income tax. Those things are necessary so that we can properly fund public education, public safety, public works, and public roads.
And how closely have you worked with, I know Speaker Moore and Senator Berger and members over at the General Assembly have been working on a finance plan, kind of looking at the hole that was created by the lockdown in order to be able to make sure that we meet all of our obligations going forward. How are those discussions going?
Well, they're going very well. About 6 weeks ago, OSBM, the Controller's Office, and the Treasurer's Office put together a package where we applied for the COVID CARE Act money that your viewers are familiar with, part of the multi-trillion-dollar piece of legislation. Within a few days of that application, actually, Michael, we received the first $2 billion. And all told, North Carolina received over $4 billion of COVID CARE Act money. Now, as soon as that money hit North Carolina, the Treasurer's Office, as you can imagine, we put it in interest-bearing investments. But $471 million of that by Congress was designated for 3 counties and 1 city. Your viewers know we have 100 counties and 540 cities. The $471 million of that left to go to 3 counties and 1 city. And these were counties or cities with a population of over 500,000 people. The question we get most often is, why didn't Raleigh get any of that? And the reason is that with all the other large incorporated parts of Wake County, there's not 500,000 people in the city of Raleigh. And then the legislature a few weeks ago passed a COVID bill that spent about $1.5 billion that the governor signed. And so as we sit here tonight, we have $2 billion unused from the COVID CARE Act money. We're going to stack these for your viewers. We have over $2 billion of an unappropriated budget for the current fiscal year that we're sitting in. We have over $1 billion, as you mentioned, in the rainy day fund. And then we have over $3 billion sitting in the unemployment trust fund. And I know there's widespread dissatisfaction with the administrative backlog at the unemployment system. But contrary to what I inherited in 2013 at that agency, where every time we paid out a benefit, we had to go borrow the money from the federal government, it should be comforting to your viewers to know that at least the money is there to pay the benefit once the backlog gets cleared.
Well, that's a remarkable story. I think, when we look at where we are with Governor Cooper and his management style, that there is concern, right? Because when you were in that position managing the Department of Employment Security, we were ranked very, very highly, and yet here we are today, ranked officially dead last in the entire United States for that, and we've seen that in other areas as well, including the highway trust fund and how much is being spent out of our highway funds versus what we had. That was certainly pre-COVID as well. But talk a little bit about what you see as some of the management, fumbles from the Cooper administration.
Well, my reputation, either as a local elected official or while I've been in Raleigh, is that I attack problems. And the problem that we're trying to attack, for example, with the Department of Transportation, is that they've been writing checks they couldn't cash. Now, I said that recently to a group of 4-Hers at their state convention, and to talk about a checkbook is not a concept that everybody's familiar with, depending on how old you are. So to even hear the treasurer say they're writing checks they couldn't cash, what does that mean? What that means is there wasn't any money in the bank for the check to clear. And over the last 20 months, they had overspent their budget by $2 billion. And on top of that, when I was sworn in as state treasurer, the Highway Trust Fund had over $1.4 billion in it. As we sit here tonight, it has less than $150 million. The Highway Trust Fund had really not been touched for 14 years, and now it's been completely wiped out. And the reason this should matter to your viewers is that whether they're taxpayers or the road-using public or the contractors who actually repair and build roads and bridges, this General Assembly set the DOT on a path 5 years ago for a sustainable and solvent Department of Transportation, and now we're in a really bad situation. And the state auditor recently came out to kind of bookend what I've been talking about for nearly 19 months, and with a stinging audit report about DOT. And the people of North Carolina deserve better.
They do, and I think that it's going to be real easy for people to say, well, that's because we didn't have the revenues coming in because of the virus, but that really preceded the virus in terms of your initial reports and what you had been talking about.
Well, it did, and it's everybody's always trying to blame the wrong thing in order to get the message directed or steered to somewhere else other than what really happened. With the DOT, they blamed it on storms. Well, that's why you have reserves. Well, they blamed it on the MAP Act. The DOT had knowledge of the MAP Act for almost 22 years. So they continually blame it on things, and some of it, adds up. It doesn't add up to the total mismanagement of that department over the last 2 years.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I've noticed in all of our Republican candidates that are running statewide here over the course of this election cycle is that they have absolutely awesome spouses, right? Everybody has married up. And I know, from my brief conversations that I've had with Cynthia, she is an absolutely fantastic lady. Talk a little bit about how you met her and managed to get her to become Mrs. Folwell.
Well, it's one of those things that I often talk to young people about, that you have 5 points in your life where something happens at a split second that determines what direction you go in. And, meeting her was one of these opportunities. I was at a client's place of business, and I had blocked her car in. I always accuse her that's the worst pickup line to ask a guy about cars, but I actually did block her car in. And and met her. And then I called her back a few weeks later. She said, "Who are you? And when did I meet you?" And it's one of these situations. But I'll tell you this, that some things in life are so beautiful, they don't have to draw any attention to themselves. They just are. And she's just that individual. She's just a person that comes into a room and she doesn't have to draw any attention to herself. And she's an amazing human being that I'm just lucky enough to call my wife.
Well, that's fantastic. And I say this, I always joke about North Carolina, in addition to having 100 counties, has 3 different time zones. This is a big state. And as a statewide candidate and as, frankly, a treasurer that has really always hit the ground, and you have had a fantastic presence all across the state. Talk about what it means to have her when she gets to travel with you and to be able to bounce ideas off of, as you're looking at your campaigning or even your professional work, what it means to have that partner and, as you're navigating these 100 counties of ours.
Well, I don't travel with an entourage as state treasurer. I have a white Ford Fusion, just like a lot of other state employees when I go out on official business. And what we say across North Carolina, whether she's with me or not, is that there's no Democrat and Republican money at the treasurer's office. It's just all green. We have people from all parts of North Carolina that behind their faith and their family and their personal health, the most 2 important things in their lives as public servants is this security and the safety and the sustainability of this pension plan and the state health plan. And that's why I go out across North Carolina with this message, because it's their money.
Right. Absolutely. When we switch gears back kind of to the government side of it, you are one of the senior members on the Council of State and have a role, not just in terms of your department, as big as that role is, but also to be an advisor to the governor. In this particular iteration of our government, there's not a lot of advising going on. There's not a lot of listening going on. Talk a little bit about what your experience has been as a member of the Council of State dealing with Governor Cooper.
Well, my experience has been, we're not talking about him as a person. We're talking about him in his professional capacities as well as policies. As I said earlier, my job is to attack problems and to challenge assumptions. It just seems like that every time you challenge an assumption, you're called political. And I'll clean this up for your audience. People really don't give a darn what political party you're a member of. They just want their problems fixed. And their problem, as we sit here tonight, is massive job and food insecurity. First time in my lifetime that we've ever faced this as a citizenry. And, you have to be willing to challenge assumptions in order to get the right answers. Just a few weeks ago, we were told we don't have enough ventilators in the country. Then we have too many ventilators in the country. And then we're exporting ventilators in the country when it came to be that ventilators really wasn't what was needed. So there's all kinds of challenging assumptions that need to take place. For example, Steve Troxler is our agricultural commissioner. I don't know of anyone who's better qualified in the United States, including the U.S. Agriculture Commissioner, Sonny Perdue, to answer questions about food chain than Steve Troxler. Cherie Berry is our labor commissioner, and she knows a lot about the labor market. So it's not just the financial part, but there's a lot of expertise in the Council of State that I think would be very valuable to us, not only just having the transparency, but also having the right policies and the right data so that we don't have inconsistent messages across North Carolina. I believe that people are losing confidence in their government just because of the inconsistent ways that they see. Some people are locked down and some people aren't. And my fear as the state treasurer and the keeper of the public purse is that this economic virus, not bending that curve, flattening that curve, has the potential to set forth an economic inequality, not just among individuals, but among regions of North Carolina. And we got to make sure that doesn't happen, because typically when we face a crisis like this, it's normally the lower income and the fixed income people that get hurt the worst.
Yeah, you mentioned a word, transparency, which I think is critical, right? And really what we need out of our government, and you can talk about this from the Department of the Treasury, transparency and certainty. People need to know what the government is doing,
Mhm.
how they're going to do it. You can benchmark against expectations. You can benchmark against, previous experience with it. But people want to know, is the government doing what they said they were going to do? And right now, I think if we were to contrast what is happening with you and treasurer with what we're seeing from the governor right now, we're not seeing a lot of transparency and certainty on that front.
Well, this inconsistency, for example, we're sitting right across from a amazing YMCA. April 22nd, why? You can look at me and tell that I don't go to gyms and I don't drink and go to bars, but I've got nothing against gyms and bars. But my point of saying that to you is, toward the end of April, people were actually, told that as we go into phase two, these are the things you need to do as a business owner or a YMCA or YWCA to get prepared for phase two. So there were tens of hundreds, millions of dollars spent across North Carolina for people to upfit and change their whole way of doing business to get ready for phase two. And then once phase two was announced, they were told, well, you're not in phase two. This is, as I said earlier, challenging assumptions and getting consistency that people can rely on is very valuable. And I would say this, no matter who the governor was or what political party they're a member of, when we are in a situation where people have job and food insecurity, as I said earlier, people don't care what political party you're a member of, they just want their problems fixed.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we can look at in terms of your service as treasurer really is as the keeper of the purse, that purse has been in fantastic hands. I think, one of the things that you had mentioned to me before was how well we have done in the stock market with it having crashed, with our investments are being solid compared to other states with that. Talk a little bit about how you've managed the state's funds to be in as good a shape as you mentioned earlier.
Well, I'll give this report, but I'm standing on the shoulders of a lot of hardworking people at the Investment Management Division, and actually every previous state treasurer who has always conservatively managed this plan. The pension plan has $104 billion in it today. We pay out $530 million every 30 days. That's over $6.5 billion a year. That's more than the state debt, to sort of put all this in context. So we're in the check delivery business, and with all this stock market volatility, the pension plan is basically even for the calendar year.
Right.
And it looks like it's going to end up about up 4% for the fiscal year that ends at the end of June. Now, that's below the 7% assumed rate of return, but
right.
There's been tremendous volatility. And just to think from Treasurer Moore's time, he was the treasurer. As soon as he went into office, our country was attacked with 9/11. The plan lost tens of billions of dollars. And then toward the end of his term, we were hit with 08. The plan lost another tens of billions of dollars. And this puts an incredible hardship on the General Assembly's ability to fund it, as well as the counties and cities and other participants in these plans, because not only is the employee contributed to all these pension plans, but their employers at the local level are contributing 10% of payroll, and at the state level, nearly 15% of payroll.
As you look at this, next couple of years and really the lessons that we've learned coming out of this shutdown, what changes do you think that we as a state need to make, that we need to kind of make sure that we're in a safe place, that we're not spending more than we should, that we're being fiscally responsible with, again, the public's trust?
Well, I was meeting with Carl and Ray recently at this little city of Bermuda Run outside of Winston-Salem this weekend, and I was talking to them about my experience with COVID-19, and I said, I can appreciate more than most people on this earth the focus on the sick. But while we're focusing on the sick, we got to make sure we don't punish the healthy, and that's a very important key to find the right balance here. But this goes back to what we talked about earlier. It's challenging assumptions, transparency, data, and then put the right policies together that are consistent and consistently communicated.
And if you were to get reelected, which you're gonna, very excited about that. What do you think you would want to do to set up, further reforms or further changes to the department or to your process for it, or do you feel like we've got a really good base and we just need some tweaks?
Well, as far as the pension plan is concerned, when I arrived at the treasurer's office, we did not have the ability to manage index funds in-house. And now, as we sit here tonight, including the fixed income, half of the $100 billion is managed internally. So we're very proud of that. So we've always focused on preserving and strengthening, but figuring out how to sustain this pension plan for the next generation of public service workers. On the healthcare and pharmaceutical side, we continue to focus on clear pricing, get rid of secret contracts, push the power to the consumer. You know, this Wednesday will be Senior Citizen Day. You'll get there one day, Michael, but on Senior Citizen Day is where you go in, you get your discount. And Thursday's Senior Citizen Day at Harris Teeter. My point is that people know how to consume if they have the information and the power and the skills to push that information down to them. Because as Warren Buffett said about a year ago, rising healthcare costs are the tapeworm on the U.S. economy, and he's exactly right. You know, healthcare is the only thing your viewers consume on a daily basis or a yearly basis, hopefully, where they don't know the value of the cost of it, even after they've consumed it. And this is important because we have public service workers, those that are teaching, those that are protecting us, corrections officers who are in unbelievable environments these days, for example, as well as first responders and police officers. They're having to work 1 week out of every 4 this year, 1 week out of every 4 to pay the family premium on the largest purchaser of healthcare in North Carolina. So that's something that I'll continue to work on, but mainly it's transparency. I'm told by international and some national members of press that I'm the only person they know of who will have a call with the press every month for at least an hour with not knowing who's going to call in or what the questions are going to be, where they can ask me anything, because I'm the keeper of the public purse, and because it's their money and people deserve to know how the purse is doing.
Well, you mentioned healthcare costs and transparency. I think one of the things President Trump has tried to do, he put out an executive order laying out a path forward for health transparency. And when I took a deep dive into his executive order, it looked a lot like what you've already put in place here in North Carolina. Kind of talk about
Sure.
you know, the vision for what you put in place and how the president has really adapted those same principles.
Well, you know, as Kelly King, who is the CEO of Truist, formerly BB&T, always says, be sure to tell people why you did something, then we can figure out the how. Why do we do this?
Yeah.
Because the state health plan has $32 billion of unfunded liabilities. The North Carolina State Health Plan, as compared to the pension plan, which is one of the 5 best funded in the United States, the health plan's unfunded liability on a per capita basis puts us right behind Illinois. And the reason is that promises were made for public service workers to be eligible for lifetime health care benefits, but no money was ever put aside for that purpose. So the why of your question is that we don't have a choice, because when you're on a pay-go basis and you have a $32 billion unfunded liability, you've got to start doing something to bend the healthcare curve. And that's why we came up with the Clear Pricing Project. The president, maybe a year after we launched the Clear Pricing Project, came up with this executive order. It's very important. We have 25,000 providers of healthcare in North Carolina on the state health plan. And all of the healthcare people in the state health plan can go to our website and figure out who the clear pricers are. There's no secret contracts. You know exactly what you're paying when you go in for healthcare services. It's a big deal. And to tell you the buying power of this plan, if you combine the domestic employment base of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, Jamie Dimon's JP Morgan, and Jeff Bezos' Amazon, we have almost as many people in this state health plan, one state health plan, equivalent to all 3 of those companies combined. And we should be able to do it better and more efficiently on behalf of those that teach, those that protect, and those that otherwise serve.
Well, I think it's a fantastic story, and I think it's really neat that you are such a leader throughout the country, really in trying to push this initiative and making sure that we understand what the costs are for people to buy. So that's fantastic. So I want to switch back to a personal story, right? So
We're going to talk about motorcycle racing?
we're going to talk about motorcycle racing. So,
All right, go ahead.
you know,
See how I smile? I smile when I talk about motorcycles and my wife. So.
absolutely. So that's good. No, you've been racing for a long time and
Yeah.
had a lot of fun with that. Tell people about you and bikes.
Well, I'm the least likely person to ever be the state treasurer of North Carolina, keeper of the public purse, based on where I started in life. And it wasn't just motorcycles; it was motorcyclist people who shepherded me and gave me those fatherly talks all during my career. I worked at Honda Winston-Salem for 6 years there in Clemens, North Carolina now, and worked at Young Harley Davidson there in Greensboro for a couple of years. And I started my life with my hands and my back and my feet, and from that it changed my heart about the need to educate my mind, and that's how ultimately, as a garbage collector and a motorcycle mechanic, I started taking classes at Winston-Salem State and UNCG, where I graduated. So motorcycling has been a big thing to me. I set the world distance record over a decade ago, riding almost 33,000 miles in 30 days. Then I've raced cross country and retired last year after 45 years of racing. On the last lap of my last race of my life, went over a jump. I was in second place, and bike bucked me off in midair and came down and broke my arm diagonally between the elbow and the shoulder. And so that's something I've been doing all of my life, riding road motorcycles and also racing dirt bikes. And of course, it's been an interesting year with my COVID-19 diagnosis. So the last 10 months in healthcare has been very interesting for me.
Well, I tell you what, I'm glad that you recovered both in terms of the last wreck and in terms of COVID. So we got a lot of folks that are watching these chairman's chats. It's been a really fantastic experience. What do you tell those folks who want to know how to help your campaign? When you're running for reelect at this point, and you've done such a fantastic job. How can people learn more about it, and how can they help you?
Well, they go to nctreasurer.com and read more about all the things we do. State and local government commission, the pension system, the defined contribution plan, state health plan, pharmaceutical benefits, the financial operation division, and we also have something that may make it even financially good for them to be watching this, called NC Cash. Now, I used to stutter, so I try not to say the word escheats over 3 times per day because it could come out wrong. But every state has an escheats fund. We have about $750 million sitting in NC Cash. It's not a gimmick. We gave $600,000 last year to a lady who is the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, and no one had ever told her. There's no charge to go and look up nccash.com. And there's no charge to get what's owed you. Now, we only talk about this during the end of our remarks so that people won't be checking it while we're talking. But we have over $1 million that belongs to churches. Over 100 hospices and habitats and food banks have money at nccash.com. I was just speaking to the Currituck Chamber of Commerce, and the director there was actually punched in the Currituck Chamber of Commerce, and they had money sitting in NC Cash while I was talking about NC Cash. So they can go to nctreasurer.com and go to nccash.com. And if you'd like to support me being rehired as the keeper of the public purse and the chief financial officer, you can go to dalefolwell.com and contribute. And I can tell you, in the last election, we ran a very efficient campaign. We received more votes than the president, more votes than the governor. And some campaigns spent $12 a vote. We spent 41 cents a vote. So I can tell you that their money will go a long way if you go to at dalefolwell.com and contribute. Just to remind your viewers, the limit is $5,400 per person at this point in the cycle. So I just want to make sure nobody goes over that amount.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you this. I think when you look at your path and how you've ended up here as the treasurer and the absolute fantastic job that you've done as the keeper of the purse for all of North Carolinians, I think it's absolutely fantastic. We look forward to you being reelected. And frankly, I think we just need a steady hand at the wheel during these times. And we're trying to figure out what the true economic impact of the governor's lockdown is going to be. I know I feel a whole lot better knowing that you're in that position. And we need to make sure that we get our majorities in the legislature back. And we need to make sure that we have Governor Dan Forest and somebody for you to work with on the Council of State. And we appreciate you coming in here to the Chairman's Chat. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. And as former Congressman Howard Coble used to say, these chats just don't jump up on the table by themselves. So we thank all the folks that are behind the camera that make this possible.
Absolutely. So another great Chairman's Chat. Tune in next week and we will have another great version. And thank you so much.